Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to call our regular meeting, September 16th, 2024, to order. Pretty hefty schedule to go through, so we'll get right into it. First of all, our first regular monthly meeting with our new acting CEO and COO, so welcome. And with that, I'm going to hand it over for remarks from.
Okay, do you want to do the minutes? You want to do the minutes first? Or do them after?
We'll do them after.
Okay. Well, on behalf of staff, the authority staff, and the rest of the greater airport community, we'd like to thank the board sincerely for all of your support. We've been here 9 full days so far with the new administration, or whatever you want to call it, the new leadership, and we want to give you our sincere thanks for your input, for your support, and for your guidance. We know we're getting steady guidance, and let's have a hand from the board. As I think you know, because we've been in intimate communication with the board members, and we've had 3 committee meetings last week, that we've been continuing our outreach both with the media, but more importantly with the airport family. John sponsored a pizza working lunch last week with the authority staff, and we got to catch up on a lot of nice things. And I won't go on and on, but Michael had a wedding in his family with his son this weekend. Margaret's got one coming up with her son, and Michael's got another one coming up. So, and a lot of other good news about children and grandchildren and so forth. So we're trying to, I think we're communicating with staff and the greater airport. We've also met with airports. We've met with Millionaire. We have a meeting with one of the airlines on Wednesday. We're going to continue with that. So we wanted to thank the board and let you know that we're continuing with our outreach, assuring everybody that things are going just fine. With respect to the construction, John's going to have a lot more to say about that. But again, I think we're in good hands with John. I think he's getting his arms around the schedule, and he's got a pretty exciting report to do during his part of the agenda. And air service development is another significant item that has been communicated by the board to us, and we heard you loud and clear. So we have an airport consultant here, Michael Lum. He's going to make a presentation right after all the reports, before the action items. He's coming in from Texas, so we're going to try to release him early on in the meeting before the action items. But I think you'll be impressed by the presentation that he makes as well. So thank you once again, and we look forward to the future, our great future.
Thank you. I guess before I go into approval of minutes, I just want to thank and recognize all of the staff that are here today, all the leaders from different departments. The board has supported this from day one. We think it's very important to get everybody together. We want to hear what's going on from all different departments. Communication is key, and we're gonna remain. We're gonna keep on making sure that that happens. And also another remark about you guys hitting the ground running. Really appreciate it. I know John, our COO, has overseen over $1 billion in renovations during his long and storied career. So we are very comfortable knowing that the construction project is in your hands. Thank you. And your experience at the hotel, or the seems like a hotel. But, at our airport is just adds to 50 years of combined experience here. So we're very pleased with the progress so far. So with that, we'll jump right into approval of minutes from our regular meeting, August 12th, 2024. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Sari, second. Kevin. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And also a motion on our special meeting, September 4th, 2024. Motion again, Sari.
Second.
Second, JR. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Let's jump right into a report from our Chief Operating Officer, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to take a moment to extend my gratitude and appreciation to the Authority Board for considering me for this position as Chief Operating Officer. As you know, I was employed here at the airport for some 23 years. I have to admit that I enjoyed every single day, and it's these managers that make it so enjoyable to work in a productive environment where we were able to grow this airport. One of my problems is that once I start talking about it, I might go too long, but I have to say that when Peter and I arrived in 1996, we had 3 buildings here. We had the old that remained after the demolition of the existing terminal. We had the 79 building, and that still is here. We had the ARF building, which was our former offices, and we had the hangar 1. I believe it's that large hangar right immediately adjacent. Those are the 3 buildings that remained after we started demolishing the existing terminal. And today we have 57, last count, as I recall, you might have added more in the last few years. So last count, we had 57 buildings around the airport. So you can see how we've grown the airport overall. So in my new role as a COO, I have many departments under my authorization direction. But once again, it's always under the direction of the CEO, Peter Studo, and in full cooperation with the Authority Board. And I guarantee you that I will do as the board directs and as the CEO directs in my new role. So the departments that I control will be airside, landside, terminal expansion, construction, planning with Connor, construction, which John and I worked very closely together for years. So I'm looking forward to this new challenge. So getting down to business. What you have in front of you, I handed out to the board a small handout, and what we heard when I arrived, I guess Peter says 9 days ago, what I heard was the customer experience coming through the construction was, the construction was taking over the airport, making passenger traffic a little cumbersome. And I suppose that you did receive some complaints from time to time regarding this. So what we've done is with Peter, John, Connor, and the group, the construction manager, Turner, and the architect, we did a walkthrough. And what we have is a plan of action in front of you. I'm not going to go through every detail of it, but you can see if the board looks at this handout here, this is what we've directed the team to do. And what it is we looked at signage, we looked at cleaning up the environment, or cleaning up the work environment, and also opening up some more curbside. So everyone has a task on here. I mean, if you look at the first one, responsibilities, Turner MLD, time frame, and the timelines are very quick. I mean, it's like next Wednesday, next Friday, a week from Friday, if it involves some minor materials that they have to get a hold of to put in place. And you can see that the first one is like storage can be located to primary work site, clean up, add the first one's adding more curbside, where the contractor, and I'm not faulting them, because if I was in their shoes, I would be trying to take as much space as I could for my laydown areas. Well, that's fine if we didn't have customers having a need to use that curbside. So on the ticketing side of the terminal, we're going to open that up, return it back to the customers. So everyone's got the gist of what this is, and we'll do this. We'll have this walkthrough maybe every month, every 6 weeks, to keep abreast of any changes that are being made throughout the construction, and that the signage is done properly. Okay, then my next focus was the construction schedule overall. And what we put together is this phasing that you'll see right up here. And this aligns with the original construction timelines. We're not going to redo with the contracts program, I should say that. We're not going to change the contract durations overall, but they will have individual milestones going forward. And what we need to do is we need to modify the contracts, because in the contract it stipulates what the end dates are. So we have to meet with those contractors to negotiate in some ways new completion dates. And the reason why I'm proposing the schedule is because it delivers areas to the customer sooner. The original construction contracts had one end date. The idea was to keep all the work behind barriers and then open up the space in a grand opening. We're changing that. We want to deliver, our staff recommendation, this is, wants to deliver, different spaces sooner. For example, the terminal upgrades, including the family-friendly sensory room, children's play area, state-of-the-art business center, that can be done much quicker than waiting, for a year and a half from today. We think we can deliver that much sooner. The second area too, the ticket area improvements. This is where all the counters are being replaced, the wall, and it also extends into baggage claim. We can deliver that sooner as well. And the third one is the main departure hall. It's a queuing area before the ticketing. And this was supposed to be one of the last, this was in the original plan, this was the grand, delivery of what the airport spent $100 million on. This time frame is going to compare to the original one, and we're going to deliver that area. But the work's not going to be done. What we're going to do is focus on getting this done on time, and we will deliver the dates. Hopefully next board meeting, because John Leclerc and the construction manager and myself have to work this through, all the dates, and to lock them in contractually. And 4 is once the area is open to the public, where they can come up the new escalators, go into the queuing, and go through the checkpoint. This is going to, give a lot of movement to the traffic and reduce any consternation that anyone has in coming to the airport, because it's going to look very much what it will in the final build out. And the fourth phase is that when you open up the checkpoint, you're going to have existing elevators, the old escalators, old escalators, and the changeover is going to be on one night, where you open up the new escalators, you reroute the traffic up through the queuing, the TSA, and then you lock down the old ones, and then you have to remove the old escalators. So that'll be a turnover in one night. And the last phase would be the renovation of Terminal A. And that is its own project unto itself, and that's going to follow very similar to align very well with the original dates. And we'll get you those dates. We hope to have them locked in by next board meeting. Okay. So that's my initial presentation on schedule. On cost, I'm still studying the cost. I'm working with John Turner, and the message out there is cost containment, because as the board has indicated to me, this is $100 million. There's no more dollars than that. So we have to deliver the project within that cost limitation, and we feel confident we can do that. If there's any questions, I'd gladly answer.
Any questions? Yeah.
So John, I'm hearing what you're saying. I know it's going to take some time for you to get your arms around the timing of all these phases. So I appreciate that, the diligence, and willing to wait for the answers on this. I think what I'm hearing though is that there's certain components here that will be able to meet the original timelines.
Yes.
And there's probably some other components here that we're going to have an extension of the timeline.
Yes.
Right, and we'll just wait for you to give us those.
Yes,
And then knowing that, listen, we know projects are going to come into certain challenges, and just because I think what's really important, and I appreciate the upfront here, and something I know that we've talked about at this board, we've talked about CIC, ensuring that the passenger experience is not totally disrupted.
Right.
We want people to be able to come into this airport and not feel like it's a different chaotic moment every time they come here.
Correct.
People come here, they like this airport because of the ease of use, because it's simple. We want to keep it simple.
Right.
Giving the contractors their service, but making sure that people know what to expect when they get here. So I appreciate that. The other thing though we have to do, and that's what I think this does and where we're getting to, we have to be transparent on the timing.
Right.
Because people need to know, listen, they travel a certain amount of times out of this airport over the course of a year. They have a right to know what to expect.
Right.
And I just want to make sure that going forward that we're constantly keeping updates. And I think, weekly updates like we're doing, the daily stuff we're doing, but also on the timelines, just so people know look, it's gonna be this time. And so I think laying this out in these phases and not having a big grand unveil, we're gonna create this black box that eventually will rip it, will tear down the curtain and show you. Like, we don't need that. We just need people to be able to utilize this airport, make sure that 1.3 million passengers get through here as easily and courteously as possible.
Correct.
So,
Exactly.
all right, so we're on the same page, so
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for John? Thank you, John. CFO, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a great day. Today I have to announce, the numbers this morning, that in August we had 149,279 passengers. This is so new that it did not make the presentation on the board, but I was able to copy it into your presentation. So that's the largest number we had in a month since going back probably to 2007. Before then, it could have been larger. I just didn't go back that far, so it's a good month. We're looking at projections perhaps that this year we'll have 1.480 million passengers in the year. Page 2 on the fuel, that's going along. July was similar to previous ones. We can expect that to go up in August because there was a large activity for the races up in Saratoga. The operating revenue remains above budget, and we are doing well. Of course, and that is due to the parking revenues, but most, which is on the next page, parking revenues are lower than budgeted, and they are supposed to be. We expect that in August, as shown in here, it has the same trajectory as the previous months. But what is larger is the rental car revenues, as shown on the next page, page 6. That goes up in July, and it will stay up in August, and then it's the rental car activity for Saratoga. Operating expenses on page 7, those are higher than budgeted. We had to catch up on some expenditures that we had for the perimeter security. As you are well aware, the perimeter security we have in front of the terminal for the traffic flow during the construction of the terminal bridge connector project. The profit is good, and again, that profit goes to the debt service. Operating revenues, we are favorable. In operating expenses, we are favorable, but not as favorable as other years. But we're holding our own at the moment, and hopefully that will not change throughout the rest of the year. Credit draws, these draws are for the concourse project or the terminal connector project. We have gotten reimbursements from the state all the way up. Our payments in June, we have 2 payments in our current outstanding balance right now is roughly $9 million. Other, the application 6 I have included in the board packet for approval today. We have the use and needs negotiation meeting, our next meeting is September 23rd, which is next week. Budget 2025 presentation was made to the committee. On Wednesday, we have released the first draft. You should all have the first draft. We have received comments from the airlines on Friday. I will be reviewing those comments and amending the budget, and we'll hopefully have a second draft for the budget meeting with the airlines on the 23rd next week. Thereafter, we will tie it up in a bow and present it to the finance committee for review and approval. Once it is reviewed by the finance committee, we will then go to the board as a for final approval. Thank you very much. Answer any questions. And on the budget, if anyone ever has any questions, please do not hesitate to call.
Any questions, Michael? When do you think the finance meeting will take place?
I would say the second, the last week in October. And then change to the meetings if everyone else would.
Any other questions for Michael? Okay, thank you. Moving on, project development, John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So project development, as John spoke, we're working on revising the phasing of the project itself. We're getting new timelines, new things happening. Meanwhile, MLB continues to pour concrete, do some demolition work, reroute utilities to relocate elevator 6. So that's ongoing. Next month at the board meeting, we will have a couple of change orders, some plus, some minuses, plus we'll also set in stone, we'll set the timeframe that John and I can negotiate with the contractor. We'll bring those as part of the change order too, to adjust the time schedules and lock them in, so that'll be good. Concourse A, they're just getting their feet in the ground right now. They're AOW's out laying out, working with operations and building maintenance to get their temporary walls up. Their subcontractor, J.H. Malloy, is out there they got their barricades down. They're just getting ready to start digging, locating utilities and get ready to make that one get going. That one's gonna gain traction real fast and go fairly quick. That's a nice one. Replacement of the boarding bridges, A6 and B6 will be an action item later in this meeting. Matt Moki will present that. BRH was a company out of Jersey. They came in as a little bit on that. And we're looking to get that moving forward because A6 is currently out of service. So we want to get the order in as quick as we can and then get that moving so we get that one replaced. That does have to work in unison with AOW's work that we needed at some point. Is one of the 4 bridges, so we'll make it happen. Runway 119, the rehab and lighting upgrade. We're currently working with CNS, who is our design engineers, and the FAA to add the runway end at runway 1, the threshold. See the little dots at the very end of the white line on the bottom under runway 1? Those are the threshold lights. We got to redo them. FAA's lights are not right, and neither are ours. So we're gonna, when we have to shut down for the runway, we're gonna redo that in accordance with the FAA, and that gets us a head start on the Mauser work when we need to get the Mausers done, which are as we spoke before, the Bullwinkle stuff. That's that. Air traffic control tower going really well. Colette Engineering and Councilman Electric have been working very well together. The FAA has been working with us, helping us with some escorts. Right now, Colette plans to be done with most of the work by the end of next week, and then they'll take 2 weeks off. They're waiting for delivery of the last piece that they need, which should come shipping October 9th. And then once that goes at the end of October, they'll put that in. We should be out of there. We'll do our final balancing, get all our tests done, and be done, which will hit just right for the heating season. Main elevator in the terminal. So this is elevator 6. This is the one that's getting moved, but we're also replacing elevators 9, 10, and 11. Those have been ordered. I'm waiting for delivery. My delivery date right now is middle of November, but whenever they get here, we may have to change our schedule. Originally, we were going to do number 9, which is right by D Concord, right by Lover, the big ball of rings and stuff. It's right there. We may have to change it just because of the flows for the holidays, for the passengers. We may do the 11, which is down by Southwest, which really is mostly used by workers here and Southwest people. So we could do that one first, and that'll get us past the holidays, and then we can come after number 9 and get that done in January when it's quieter. Airfield lighting controls. We have Eaton Krause Hines working with us. All the equipment is here. Ray, Millie, and LaCourt outside contracting. Electricians have all the pipe run. Dwayne, Lovely, and his guys have all the control wires. They're scheduled to come in the 3rd week of September, and they figure it'll take about 2 weeks to get it installed and then trained and switched over. We'll finish that one up. Yeah. There's your Mauser there. There's your Bullwinkles there. And Connor continues to fight with the FAA on a daily basis to see if we can get them done sooner than later. But if not, we're programmed in for next year to get them done and then get those a new system. Those are actually on the north end. Those are the nicer ones. That's what we want on the south end. If we get that done like that, it'll be in good shape. And I'll happily take any questions.
Any questions, John? All right, thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Council, Chris.
Chairman Christina, no report today, just a number of action items.
Right, great, thank you. Concessions and Ambassador Program, Alan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Currently, we have 127 concession employees with a 63% minority representation. Food and beverage and retail revenue for the month of July topped 1,700,000. With 143,000 plus employments, that gave us $11.99 sales per person per employment. On the ambassador side of things, there's been 10 tours so far. Our K-9 program is very strong. Number of hours volunteered for the month of August was 780, topping almost 58,000 guests getting a personal assist. And pretty well staying busy, somewhat busy side. And thank you, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sounds like. Okay, any questions for Helen? Thank you. Public Affairs, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the last meeting, in terms of traditional media, it's obviously been covered on the new leadership here at the airport. There's a holiday travel for Labor Day. As mentioned the other day during the community meetings, we were honored to have Natalie Gillis' mother here at the FBO to unveil a little bit of a tribute to Natalie, the young pilot who lost her life back in June at the departure and moved to Montreal. Traditional news media on the flights to JetBlue, MCO, and FLL. Some media on Pointer, a new wayfinding app that'll be coming here to the airport. I'll get some pretty cool T-38 fighter jets here visiting as part of training exercises. So we've got some media coverage on that. Obviously, there's been some media coverage on the construction, and then the new nonstop flight from ALB to Las Vegas, Nevada. Lots going on social media. We welcome home our New York State wildland firefighters who are out there in Montana. Some of the other things, would be the Las Vegas promo. We're looking forward to unveiling that winner, hopefully this week or next. Just working with the Las Vegas Convention Authority on that. The live burn that ARC did was pretty cool. It's a simulated aircraft that was on fire. So that's some social media on that. The Natalie Gillis tribute. Did an airport ops inspection video the other day. And I just encourage everyone to check out some of the stuff that's taking place on our social media page. Want to do a separate slide for September 11th, 2001. This was something that was really important to Peter. It's probably one of his first directives to me was, let's make sure we do something nice for September 11th. We relocated our stone memorial to the ARC Fire Station. Had a bagpiper, a lot of staff there, and very moving remarks from the chairman. So we really appreciate that. Got a lot of good feedback on that memorial that remembered the ceremony. So thank you very much for that. Construction updates, we're staying consistent with our messaging on social media, making sure people know what's going on. The newest addition to social media construction would be the flat-through rendering of Concourse A, letting people know that that's going to be coming soon, especially temporary walls since they started to be erected in Concourse A. Social media insights over the last 90 days, reaching about 1.2 million on Facebook, published about 101 posts, engagement of 313,000. Instagram reached about 20,000 people over 90 days, 105 Instagram posts, and an engagement of 1,300. The website, continue to update the website, continue to update the newsroom, and I have a meeting tomorrow with Vibrant to create a landing page specific to Concourse because it's different than the expansion project. So we just want to have another landing page where people can go for information on that. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Questions for Steve? Thank you very much, Steve. Air Service Development Presentation. This is for anyone who hasn't met Michael Lum. Thank you, and
Thank you, Sam. My name is Michael Lum, and I am a managing partner with Malair Aviation. We do air service development work for probably about 70 airports across the country, ranging in size from airports like Tucson, Arizona, or Albany to very small essential air service airports. We've been in business since early 2016, but prior to that, I worked with Sixel Consulting Group, and back in 2010, John brought me aboard when I was with Sixel to do Albany's air service development work, and we had a lot of work to do for Albany. In fact, we actually had a conference here, some of you may remember, back in, I guess it was 2015, where we had an air service development conference where we brought airlines and airports together here in Albany to meet and discuss air service needs. And it's interesting, I remember a breakfast meeting at that conference where John and Bill O'Reilly, if you remember Bill, and I met with JetBlue for one of the first times we met with JetBlue. And that pretty much got JetBlue's interest going and piqued their interest. And JetBlue eventually came into Albany. I believe the first date they served Albany was December 10th of 2015. So we worked on that. JetBlue's probably got solid performance here in Albany. They'll be celebrating 9 years here in Albany coming up in December. So what I want to do first is take you through what's going on at a high level in the U.S. airline industry. As you know, since early 2020, the U.S. airline industry has undergone an extreme transformation. It's affected a lot of communities. But what I'll say about Albany's air service is pretty good. You have pretty good air service, but there are some opportunities that I'll talk about, I think, on the last slide as to what we can do to develop Albany's air service even further. So with that, what I'll do is and I tend to be a numbers guy. My background prior to being in consulting is I did network planning and schedule planning for American Airlines. So we were always very, very numbers focused, and I'm still very, very numbers focused. But what I wanted to do on this slide is illustrate the number of daily departures in the U.S. By aircraft type. So we've got mainline aircraft, which are essentially airplanes like 737s, Airbus A320s, mainline aircraft flown by big airplanes with about more than 100 seats. We also have a category of aircraft called large regional jets, which have 66 to 90 seats in red. And then we have small regional jets, which are regional jets that have 50 seats or fewer. But overall, if we compare the year-end third quarter of 2019 to the year-end third quarter of 2024, our daily departures are still down. And that's primarily because our regional aircraft departures are down versus where they were prior to the pandemic. Our mainline departures are up. But overall, if we take a look at seats, our seats are up about 6.1% in the year-end third quarter of 2024 versus the year-end third quarter of 2019 prior to COVID. And that's mainly because of more seats on mainline aircraft. And if we take a look at the next slide, what I've done on the next slide is illustrated our seats per departure. So the average number of seats per departure on mainline aircraft were 162 departures per 162 seats per departure in 2019, and they're up to about 170 seats per departure in year-end third quarter of 2024. So on average, for all aircraft types, the number of seats per departure has increased from 125 up to 141. And that's because we have more mainline aircraft in service now than we did prior to COVID. And airlines have also done what they have a term for it called densification, meaning they have squeezed more seats into every airplane. So our seats are up prior to COVID across the US airline industry. And if we take a look at domestic seat change by airline in terms of seat capacity, what we see is our domestic seats are only up about 6% versus where they were prior to COVID. And you can see most of the growth has come from the low cost and ultra low cost airlines. Most of the legacy carriers, being airlines like American Delta and United, still have domestic or don't have as much domestic capacity growth as the low cost carriers do. But if we take a look at international capacity, you can see overall international capacity is up versus where it was prior to COVID, with airlines like Spirit and Frontier growing their international capacity pretty dramatically. So overall, as I said, international capacity is up about 13%. So, and then if we blend our domestic and international seat capacity, we're up about 6.4% in the year-end third quarter of 2024 versus the year-end third quarter of 2019. Again, and most of the growth is coming from the low-cost and ultra-low-cost airlines on the right side of the chart. Let's take a look at profitability. So this is second quarter 2024 operating margin. And what you'll see standing out here is the legacy airlines, Delta, United, American, and we'll throw Alaska in there as well, because Alaska's been generating some pretty healthy operating margins, are doing much better than airlines to the right of American. So airlines like Southwest, Frontier, and Spirit aren't doing as well as the legacy carriers are. And that's primarily because the legacy carriers now know how to compete against the low-cost carriers. So when you go out to book a flight on, for example, on AA.com, on American's website, you'll see a lot of times a basic economy fare offered. And that's simply to match the fares that all of the low-cost and ultra-low-cost carriers are offering. So American, Delta, and United know how to compete against those guys now. And these other airlines, as you saw in some of the previous charts, have grown their domestic and international capacity quite dramatically, and they've probably grown a little too much. Airlines like Spirit and Frontier are flying around airplanes that have 230 seats stuffed in them, and they simply can't fill all of those seats in a lot of the markets where they're competing against American, Delta, and United. If we take a look at profit, operating profit, you can see Delta is probably a world-class airline now, and it is the industry standard in terms of how to operate an airline and how to generate profit. But you can see American, United, and Delta are generating substantially higher operating income than any of the low-cost carriers are. Taking a look at fares, what I've got illustrated on this chart in blue is our average one-way international fare in the U.S. dating back to first quarter of 2019. The green line is our average domestic one-way fare exclusive of any taxes or fees. And what you can see is the average fare over the past 2 years here, over the past 9 quarters, or actually, the last 8 quarters, has come down from $202 to $191. The problem there is airline costs have increased exponentially, and it's primarily a function of salaries increasing so much. When American Airlines signed its last contract with its pilots, its senior captains at American flying international routes with more than 20 years of seniority are making $590,000 as a base salary per year. So those salaries have come way, way up. And fares.
What's that?
I'm in the wrong career.
We all probably are, right? And the thing is they work about 8 days a month
for that kind of money. So you can see the fares have come down and costs have shot way, way up. So, and it's not just American, Delta, and United that have these kind of contracts. All of the airlines pretty much had to raise their pilot salaries to compete with what American, Delta, and United are offering. So Spirit, Frontier, and Southwest had huge increases in what they're paying their crews. So this is Albany's air service. So I'll transition now into what Albany's air service is like these days. As I said, we have pretty good air service. We have nonstop service to 26 destinations on 7 airlines. I think the newest destination that's not yet flown yet is this airport code here, USA, which is Concord, North Carolina, which Avello, I think, is going to start on November 7th. So Avello began service to Raleigh-Durham back in, was it May? I think it was May. So Avello is the new kid on the block here. We've got Southwest service to Las Vegas, which has been reinstated after COVID. And there are some holes in the network, which I'll get to, as I said previously on the last slide. But overall, we have pretty good air service here in Albany. And I know this is a bit of an eye chart, but what I wanted to illustrate on this chart are simply the number of flights per day each way, seats per flight, seats per day each way, and seats share by airline and market. And the main takeaway here is Southwest is the 800-pound gorilla in the room with about 31% of the seat share, followed by American at 21% of the seat share, and then by Delta at 18.3% seat share, and United at 13% of the seat share. What this chart, what I want to do now is compare Albany to some other metro areas in the US to give you a sense of how good your air service is, what the quality of your air service is. So what I did is I took a look at Albany's population of about 900,000 residents and went up or down 100,000 residents versus what Albany's population is to give you a group, a peer group, or to give you some peer group airports. So smallest market that we're comparing ourselves to is Dayton. Largest market would be Omaha. And then if we take a look at the number of scheduled seats per day each way among these airports, you can see Albany pretty much falls in the middle with about 5,100 seats per day each way in the second half of the year. And that compares to Albuquerque having about twice as many seats per day each way as Albany does. So again, these cities are all similar sized cities, and you can see how the level of airline capacity varies between these cities.
Michael, can you tell us why, I asked you this yesterday, why is Albuquerque doing so well compared to us?
That's this chart.
Okay.
So what I did is I took a look at seats per capita. So I divided the number of seats by the population and for the second half of the year, and Albany has 1.04 seats per capita. You can see Albuquerque is almost twice as much at 2.04 seats per capita. Boise is also a little bit less than two seats per capita, and so on. And the factor here is places like El Paso, Omaha, Boise, and Albuquerque are very isolated. There really isn't another airport within a reasonable driving distance of those four airports where people could go to. In Albany, we can leak to, it's called leakage. We can catch a flight relatively easy from Boston. It's less than 3 hours away. The three New York, big three New York area airports people can drive to relatively easy. We've got Newburgh down the road. So it's primarily a function of these airports being very, very isolated. People simply don't have any alternative if they don't want to fly from their local airport.
It's also the driving distance too, right?
Yeah. It's we call it isolation.
Yeah.
So Albany pretty much falls in the middle of the pack and maybe slightly above the average. Places like Columbia, South Carolina, Dayton. Columbia has Charlotte, 90 minutes to the north. Dayton has Columbus and Cincinnati relatively close by. Some place like McAllen has Harlingen and Brownsville. So that's why you fall where you do. And then if I take a look at other airports in the region around Albany, what I looked at was Rochester, Providence, Syracuse, Buffalo, and Hartford, and compared Albany to those airports. And you can see that Syracuse, Buffalo, and Hartford have more seats per capita than we do in Albany. Providence and Rochester have fewer seats per capita than we do. Not sure how this Syracuse number is going to change once Southwest leaves Syracuse, but that number is probably going to fall a little bit. And what I'll say about Hartford is Hartford tends to pull traffic, Hartford being out here, Hartford tends to pull traffic from all over Connecticut, Rhode Island. It's more than just the metro area, probably at Hartford. And then if we take a look at Albany's traffic, what I've done on this slide is we have what we call O&D traffic, so the number of passengers coming and going. And I've divided Albany's traffic into domestic and international origin and destination traffic. And what I'll say is we're still not quite back to where we were in 2019 using the DOT's data through year-end first quarter. But given how strong our enplanements have been lately, I would expect when I do this chart next year for the year-end first quarter of 2025, we'll be back above where we were prior to the pandemic in 2019. And this chart simply breaks it down into passengers per day each way. So on the average day in the year-end first quarter of 2024, we had 3,602 domestic passengers coming and 3,602 passengers arriving in Albany each day and 186 passengers per day each way on the international side of the business. What this chart illustrates in blue are our seats per day each way, our average domestic fare, and our domestic passengers per day each way. So the average domestic fare in Albany in the year-end first quarter of 2024 was $218, where we had about 4,600 seats per day each way and about 3,600 passengers per day each way. This chart simply breaks the data down into quarterly data. And what I did here is I compared fourth quarter of 2023 with fourth quarter of 2019, just before the pandemic hit. And we're at about 96% of where we were prior to COVID in fourth quarter of 2019. Again, a chart illustrating our seats per day each way, our average fare, and the average domestic passengers per day each way. So our average one-way domestic fare in first quarter of 2024 was $211. So you can see it's come down from where it was in second quarter of 2023, but up a little bit versus first quarter of 2023. And what I did on this chart is I illustrated in green our average domestic fare in Albany by quarter at $211 in first quarter of 2024 to the average lower 48 domestic fare of $191. So our fare is a little bit higher than the average lower 48 fare, but keep in mind what's blended into the average lower 48 fare are a lot of Spirit, Frontier, and Allegiant tickets that are sold at very low prices in large metro areas where they generate a lot of their revenue. And then what I did is I compared our average domestic fare in first quarter of 2024 in green to first quarter of 2023 and then first quarter of 2019 in red. And you can see our average fare at $211, which I mentioned previously, is the second highest in the region. Only Burlington has a higher fare than Albany does. But what I'll say about having high fares is airlines need high fares to make money. And if airlines aren't making money at Albany, they're going to pull back their service. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword. Do you want high fares or do you want less service? So I think we all know that Southwest pulled out of Syracuse or announced they were pulling out of Syracuse. I'm not sure if they're out yet. But Southwest's average domestic fare in Syracuse was $126. So, you know, compare that to the average fare in Syracuse of $178. That's why Southwest couldn't make Syracuse work. And then this chart is simply our 30 largest domestic markets. What I've got illustrated on the long portion of the bar are our O&D passengers, so the total number of passengers per day per year, and the box out there are the number of passengers per day each way. So the top 5 markets are Orlando, the 3 airports in South Florida,
the 3 airports in the Washington, D.C. area, the Chicago area airports, and Tampa, St. Petersburg. So Orlando, on the average day in the year-end first quarter of 2024, was generating about 432 passengers per day each way. So Orlando is a big market for us, followed by Miami or the airports in South Florida at about 273 passengers per day each way. The largest market we have here without nonstop service are the 5 airports in the Los Angeles basin. And those 5 airports generate about 103 passengers per day each way. And then we've got nonstop service to Nashville, nonstop service to Dallas, Fort Worth, nothing to San Francisco. So Los Angeles is our largest O&D market without nonstop service. And then these are the average fares in the 30 largest markets. The average fare in these markets is $207. So there are some bargains here. The average fare to Orlando is $145. South Florida is $172. So there are some bargains to be had. And then this chart simply illustrates, I know it's a lot, it looks like a spaghetti, but what I wanted to illustrate is market share. So Southwest had 34% of the market share in first quarter of 2024. American was at 22, Delta was at 17, and then United had 12% of the market share. International markets. So our top 5 international markets are all leisure destinations. It's Cancun, Aruba, Montego Bay, Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic, and Nassau. London is number 6. But you can see how much smaller the international markets are versus the domestic markets. Cancun's generating about 20 passengers per day each way for us. And then the average fares in the 30 largest international markets. The average fare is $426 in these 30 largest international markets. I think, yeah, then international market share. And what I'll say about this is you can see United kind of tends to peak in third quarter when international travel, European travel peaks. So United generates about a third of the international traffic in third quarter. But American, with its presence in the Caribbean, generates about 32% in first quarter. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the opportunities we have. So, and I think I would probably add a couple to this slide after looking at it. But we don't have our Minneapolis service back on Delta that we had prior to COVID. Minneapolis is a pretty big hub for Delta. We don't have United service to Denver. We lost our Frontier service. So Frontier had been flying to Denver and Orlando before they pulled out of Albany. And then, I think Tampa might be an opportunity for JetBlue. And there's a new airline in the market called Breeze Airways. It was founded by David Neeleman, who founded JetBlue. Breeze has been flying for about 2.5 years. And while they have a big focus on Florida, the other thing they're doing at Breeze is they have an ultra-efficient airplane called an Airbus A220 that seats about 130 passengers. And what they've been doing with that airplane is they've been flying it from smaller East Coast markets, primarily in the Southeast, but also I think they're flying Providence, Los Angeles. They've been flying that airplane from those smaller Southeast markets to Los Angeles. So I think that would be an opportunity for us here in Albany. Albany would be A, to get Breeze at the airport, and then B, to get them to fly to Los Angeles. And so the other opportunities might be Houston on United. We have Allegiant service to Nashville but we don't have any Southwest service to Nashville. We also don't have Southwest to St. Louis, which is a pretty big operation for Southwest. So I think that's my last slide. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions. I know, I'm sure most of the board members are getting a lot of questions about, we are an international airport. There are countless people around here who are actually driving to bigger airports to go to Europe. Have you looked into any possibilities, seeing how there's an awful lot of people who would utilize that service right here? instead of driving to Boston, New York City,
Yeah.
and now Stewart, to go.
What airlines look at is the O&D, international O&D data. And we don't really have enough international traffic to justify a nonstop anywhere. There's really, prior to COVID, there was an airline called Norwegian that was flying 737s across the Atlantic. There's, I think, Play is down in Newburgh flying to Iceland.
Yeah.
But there really aren't any precedents of smaller communities being able to support long-haul international service to Europe. There are some cases where airlines are flying to places like Cancun. So that could be an opportunity, but again, our Cancun traffic is relatively small. I mean, it does inflate a little bit in first quarter when it's cold here. But there really aren't any precedents of smaller communities being able to support international service over the long term.
And since I'm not that familiar with how the data is collected, that data takes into consideration where the passenger lives, where they may be driving from.
This data doesn't, but what we can do is, we call them leakage studies. We can determine and estimate how many passengers are flying to London, for example, on a daily basis from Albany, but flying out of Boston or Newark or JFK.
Because that's what I do.
Yeah.
And it's for other people, it's more convenient just to drive a couple hours, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. to
Yeah,
Boston.
it's still probably not going to be enough people.
Okay.
What helps support flights that or communities that do have European service? Generally, flights from Europe are flown from large hubs where there's a lot of connecting traffic in addition to the local traffic. So it would be pretty tough to convince an airline to serve Albany, given the small base of traffic and the fact that there would be no connecting traffic on the flight.
But go ahead, sir.
No, I just had a quick question about those international flights. So if people are not necessarily driving from here to JFK, Boston, or wherever, are there hubs that people from Albany are flying to get that good? I know it's been a challenge to find that connection to where I'm going at certain airports. Are there any statistics around where folks fly from Albany?
I could break that number down and tell you exactly where all 20.1 people are connecting.
Interested, would be an interesting instead of driving.
Yeah, I would say it's probably JFK and Philadelphia.
Philadelphia,
Here.
interesting.
Like
A little bit of backtracking though here, but
Right. Okay.
a comment on the international service, and then a couple other observations. So one of the things that had been done here in the past few years is there was a temporary flight that American did to Miami, which was a good connector to get south, to go to destination south. But the timing of it wasn't during the winter.
Yeah.
So looking back at connecting, something back to Miami that could get people to go to, southern destinations. That's just an idea to throw out there. Also, on the international services, look, I think having creative discussions, and I know there's a lot of delicacies with airline negotiations and their wants and needs. But one of the ideas that percolated was, is there an airline we could approach that maybe we could team up with other upstate New York airports? So if there was a flight to the UK, for example, could it be a service that maybe it's 2 days from Albany, 2 days from Syracuse or Rochester, 2 days from Buffalo?
Yeah, that's kind of innovative. That way, the airline wouldn't have to dedicate an entire airplane. It would dedicate 2/7 of an airplane effectively to Albany. You could share it with, Buffalo, and it wouldn't necessarily even need to be an upstate New York airport either. It could be some other airport someplace out like Columbus, Ohio, or someplace.
Yeah, it's just, and I think that's the sort of thinking we just, we want to explore it. We want to be an international airport. We want to be not just a name, but I think having some strategic thinking around that and trying to, just see if we can pull together an idea if it works
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
airlines.
yeah.
But also I think having better connectivity to hubs where people do want to fly internationally, you know, Miami in the south or some of these other ones. Let me just have a couple other things. You know, one of the things you talked about too is, you know, we have a healthy volume. You know, I don't know if we have a healthy diversity, right? So like, you know, I think like that, you know, we have X amount of, you know, employments, we have X amount of flights going out, but, you know, the diversity of flights. And I think what you showed us on that last slide was, you know, getting direct service to LA, for example. You know, that pops up on the chart as the West Coast is a need. And I think having, you know, having a dialogue with an airline that could serve that, whether it's, you know, trying to get Breeze in here, getting a deal done with them where they would go to LA, but also maybe they would go to Charleston and other destinations.
Exactly.
And we have a help, and Florida is a big destination for us. But I do think that the capital region's changing, you know, and I think that there's next generations that maybe don't want to just go to Florida. You know, people are looking at other cities. And I think having, you know, and I think having Allegiant go to Nashville is a good one. I think, so I think having a variety of leisure destinations is important to have that mix.
Yeah.
And I know you and I talked about this. We had a call the other day, so I'm just reiterating for things that we've talked about here. The other thing I want to say is
One of the things I'll say about Breeze, let me say something about Breeze first, and I think you're probably okay because you've got a Velo. Breeze is extremely cheap. So we have got to have a low cost per enplanement at Albany. I'm not sure what that number is or what it would be if Breeze were to come in with a daily flight, but Breeze is hypersensitive to airport costs. They were telling us, so I work for the airport in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton. And Wilkes-Barre was successful in getting Breeze into the market, but Breeze didn't want to pay over $5 per enplanement on average. And we finally convinced Breeze when we were able to get our costs down to about what they would pay about $6 per enplanement. So the numbers have to be extremely low in terms of airport costs in order to attract these new airlines. And you're probably okay because Avelo's the same way, and you've got the Avelo service.
Michael, could you expound on that?
Let me go ahead. I just want to finish a couple of things, right?
Yep.
So we can back that. The other thing I just want to say too, and I think on the airline incentive program, you know, any incentives we give, look, I think that's something that the board has to be involved in, and the board has to approve those things.
Yep.
We want the staff, but the board needs to be involved. You know, and I think that when in order for us to attract these airlines, and I think we all understand that incentives are part of that, but we want to look at the data and see, you know, is this really the flight we want? Is this really where we want to spend our money? You know, is this really where we want to put our resources? Does it meet our kind of strategy? And frankly, I think that's been missing, that we haven't been part of that policy making and the expenditures of airline incentives, for example. So that's something that will improve going forward with Peter, with John, you know, with you helping us out here. I just want to say too, the other thing is our goal here is not just to return to normal, okay? It's really not to just return to normal. We really we're making major investments in this airport. You know, we want to return on those investments. And the return on investments that our goal should be to outperform the numbers.
Yeah.
So I think first and foremost, yes, we got to get back to 2019. Yes, we're heading there. You know, other airports have already gotten there. Syracuse surpassed us. You know, we were always number 2, you know, and we fell off. You know, so we want to get back to that, but we want to exceed that. So I want to make that statement because I think when we talk about our plan and strategy, that's the strategy. The other thing is we do want to compete with these other regional airports. You know, we want to, you know, if Newburgh's bringing play in, we should be in the room talking to play before that. And I know there's, you know, bigger things at play with that, but I think even Hartford, you know, Providence, you mentioned Providence. Providence has less total volume, but when you look at their diversity, you know, it seems to me that they have a healthier diversity of locations that they're flying to. So I think we got to constantly be looking at our regional competitors because we do have leakage. We do have I'm going to Charleston in November, flying to Newburgh, I'll play. So we should really study that. We should have a new updated stage, I feel like, and we should really understand that, because we have a lot of people in this, we have a large,
You've got a huge
metro
network.
market.
Yeah.
And we really need to make sure that our people here are being satisfied here. And so many people anecdotally, but statistically show, are going to Hartford, they're going to Newburgh, they're going into Syracuse even, and getting Southwest flight back to Vegas has been on the to-do list for a long time. Unfortunately, it took them leaving Syracuse for us to get it, but making sure that I'm sure that flight will perform like it always did. That flight was always key, not just for leisure, but that's where business travelers were using that Vegas flight to get to the West Coast.
And business travelers were using Vegas to get to conventions and
To get to
conferences in Vegas, right?
And making sure that there's flights that we have that are year round, so people can understand the consistency, that they know that they can fly through Albany. And it's not just like a scatter shot of like, well, I don't know, maybe it's available. I've said a lot, but it's something I'm passionate about. I've been passionate about it since I first got on the board. And we need a really defined, clear strategy here. Also, I'll say too, by the way, and I do want John Donald's input, because look, the truth is, there were things that were said in this board meeting through the years that, in talking to you, John, and understanding the work that you guys did, that things were said like, oh, this never happened, or no one ever went to this conference, and it's just not true. I mean, you guys brought regional conferences here of all the airlines to Albany. That begets a JetBlue, and I've explained to Peter, and we put it in the job description, that the CEO of the airport has to be an airline traveler. The CEO of this airport has to get on flights and go places. And we just haven't had that in the last 5 years. You have to be part of the direct dialogue. And that's what we want to see here. And that's the commitment that we have from this new leadership. So thanks, Mike.
Yeah, you're welcome. One thing I'll say about international services, I don't know what the Federal Inspection Station or Customs facility is here in Albany. I know.
We understand where you're going, but Sari has a question. We'll hold that one
Okay.
for our internal conversation.
Okay.
Sari.
No, I'm good.
Could you just expound, because you started to touch on CPE, reports the airlines of CPE, because there's other airport consultants which don't agree with that CPE does matter. Could you talk about maybe bringing, because you and I have been talking over the last couple of days, what happened in Burlington with JetBlue and why,
Well, with Frontier.
Yeah.
Yeah, Frontier.
and why we had some problems, why we had problems getting into Southwest of Sarasota, Albany, Sarasota.
Yeah. So cost per enplanement is simply the total cost an airline pays at an airport divided by the number of enplanements it has at an airport. And it can range anywhere from zero, where some airports don't charge airlines anything to operate at the airport, to, in San Francisco, it's probably $26 or $27. Airlines are, especially these new low-cost airlines, are hypersensitive to what they're paying airports. It has to be extremely low. I don't know why Frontier left Albany, but I do know why Frontier left Burlington, Vermont. And the issue in Burlington, Vermont, it wasn't CPE. Burlington has a very competitive CPE. The ground handler who was doing the ticketing, the baggage, and the handling of the airplane while the airplane was on the ground was charging Frontier $3,000 a flight. And that is just exorbitant. It's just, so Frontier said, we're leaving Burlington. We cannot afford to pay $3,000 every time a plane lands in Burlington to the ground handler. So in order to get an airline like Frontier back, we would need to have a pretty competitive ground handling cost. And that's nothing the airport controls. It's something our ground handling companies negotiate with the airlines. But again, I'll go back to a Velo. If you've got a Velo, there's probably a ground handler here in Albany that's charging a very, very competitive rate for a Velo. And we should probably find out who that is and then have a discussion with Frontier about returning.
And I was told that some airlines actually share those services.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Yep, and that helps bring the cost down.
Just real quick with because I noticed you pointed out the Cancun and like London, but with the Cancun, is that including the new Tulum airport?
No, that would be including people that fly to Cancun and were driving to Tulum. Tulum's probably not on the chart yet.
Oh.
I've seen it appear.
It's brand new, I know.
Yeah, I've seen it appear in the data a few places, and the first time I saw it, I was like, what's this? And it was Tulum.
And then with like London, what about as opposed to like, because I know Heathrow, a lot of reasons a lot of airlines don't fly into Heathrow is because the landing cost is just exorbitant. I mean, you can get a flight to London Gatwick for almost half the cost for a London. Is that like something else in the data? So it's like if we could get like a London Gatwick over a London Heathrow?
Gatwick is probably not much less expensive than Heathrow, but someplace like Stansted would be.
Okay.
Yeah. If you've got EasyJet, which is a European version of Spirit and Frontier, flying to Stansted, it's cheap.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about the conference in Wisconsin?
Yeah, so we are going to what's called an Air Service Development Conference where we have an opportunity to meet for 25 minutes with up to 6 airlines. That conference is coming up at mid-October, I think October 22nd through the 24th. So we've got John registered, we're gonna get Peter registered to attend that conference and meet with airlines. But the other way we meet with airlines is we go directly to their headquarters to meet with them and talk about route development opportunities for Albany. We've also got the Allegiant conference coming up at the end of this month. I don't think John or Peter are gonna be able to attend that, but I can certainly represent Albany at the Allegiant conference and talk to Allegiant about new market opportunities. And I think you mentioned Sarasota and Southwest, John. Southwest pulled out of Sarasota because the airport costs were so high. So, and that was a number of years.
That's CPE.
Yeah, it was the cost per plane that was so high at Sarasota.
Thank you.
Is there interest in West Palm Beach?
Yeah, we
Because you're in between a little bit.
Yeah.
I live in West Palm Beach.
Yeah, so Breeze is big in West Palm Beach. They're also flying to Fort Pierce. They have a big operation in Fort Pierce. So, someplace like that would be an opportunity as well. All right, well, thank you for having me.
All right,
Thank you, Michael.
thank you very much. That was very interesting. Okay, let's move right into action items. We'll start with 10.1 and Chris.
The board's familiar with this item. I've come before the board, past 4 years in September, October. This is a license agreement with UPS, one of our cargo partners. It is for a period of time that runs from October until January, allowing them to have some staging space for the peak holiday period in an area or on a property that isn't otherwise encumbered, bringing in some revenue into the airport. So
We're all very familiar with it. So motion. Kevin. Second. JR, all in favor? Good. Thank you. 10.2, Chris.
this is a new lease, seen for the first time. It's a lease for 78 Sickle Road with a company called Rare Fate. They install water dispensers in locations throughout the region. This is a request for a 1-year contract with an option to renew for 1 5-year period after that. The rent's $34,992 a year.
Okay, any questions? Take a motion.
So moved.
Sari, second. Good. Kevin, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I just be marked down as a yes vote on 10.1?
Yes. Yes, so 10.1 and 10.2 were unanimous. 10.3, Chris.
This is another item that the board has seen before. I'm requesting approval and modification of the management operating agreement for our FPO with RHW Investments, which is DBA Millionaire. This is what has been authorized in prior meeting, which is 3 one-year renewals. This is the second one-year renewal of the 3, so next year there will be 1 remaining, and it also increases our management fee to RAW Investments by $5,000.
Take a motion.
So moved.
Sari, second Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And, moving on to 10.5, John.
Okay, so I'm looking for the board's authorization, for award contract number S-1196, it's for professional engineering services. The GA, the General Aviation Apron Reconstruction with McFarland Johnson. We put it on RFQ, we got 4 responses, we went through them, got voted in, and McFarland Johnson came in for this. We're looking to they're gonna do investigative work right out here all the way around Millionaire for this GA apron. It was built in a hurry when it was built because the airport grew really fast. The drainage system needs to be checked, the pavement sections need to be checked. As you know, Millionaire's been doing a pretty good business with some bigger planes, and we need to make sure that we can accommodate the weights and the loading of these planes. Even the private jets are coming in and getting to the bigger 650s. So what this project will do is have McFarland will do the design on this, and then we'll get it out to bid. And we're gonna do this in section. We're gonna start here, and then we'll work our way all the way around the terminal over the next 3 or 4 years. We'll work our way all the way around, getting all the asphalt pavement around the apron. Up to what we need for it going forward.
Sounds good. I'll take a motion. So Kevin, second. Sari, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, John, 10.6.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. 10.6 is looking for the board's authorization to award an annual service contract. Contract number SC1210 is an alarm maintenance services for the main terminal alarm, main terminal alarm system that was installed by Hewitt & Young, was supplied by FS&S, Fire Security and Sound Systems, with the alarm installed themselves. And they're willing to do a 1-year contract with us in the amount of $82,805, which is down $18,000 from their original cost. I had some negotiation with it, got down to something more reasonable. And what they'll do is they'll come in and fully test and work through all the systems, not only in the terminal, the north garage, hangar 1, which is where Hudson Valley is, and in the art building, which is the other connection for this alarm system, for an annual cost of $82,805.
Motion to approve.
Motion JR, second. Sari, any questions? All in favor?
That was my motion, I wanted it. So long as I get to watch it too.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and Matthew, 10.7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 10.7 is requesting authorization to award construction contract 1165-GC removal and replacement of passenger boarding bridges A6 and B6. The low bidder is DRH Construction Corp. The amount of $2,230,000. This would be paid through airport funds, PFCs. These bridges are 20+ years old. As John alluded to previously, A6 is currently out of service. So this would be the complete replacement of the old bridges with new fabricated bridges.
Definitely needed, yeah.
These bridges are, this is a company we've done business with. These are new ideas.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'm sorry, did you get a quote from the people?
We did not. Oxford didn't quote, and Narrowbridge did not quote. We had two new players in the game. Apparently, it's getting to be a lucrative business.
We have a motion, second.
Who made the motion?
JR made the motion. Second, Sari, any other questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 10.8, Margaret.
Good morning, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Request is made to issue annual purchase orders for the purchase of avgas, Jet A, and sustainable aviation fuel for use at the Millionaire facility, along with rental of 2 gas refuelers from the Ag Fuel Corporation for a term of 5 years. We solicited and received 4 qualified bidders, and evaluation committee picked Ag Fuels as our. It's a new relationship, and we're happy to be going forward with new and fresh equipment and new people.
Great.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just because it says you said best value, so they weren't the cheapest, but there's some.
No,
They were the cheapest?
Yeah,
Okay.
they were the cheapest too.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Alright. I see best value, I'm like, I'm not the cheapest, but okay.
Oh, yeah, I know.
When
Well,
was-
in my mind it is.
Okay, perfect,
It's always
okay.
funny.
Alright.
Okay, get a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
JR, second.
I'll second.
Tom, any other questions? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 10.9, Margaret.
Yeah, the request is made. This is our annual purchase of type 1 and type 4 glycol from Ascent Aviation to use for millionaire and spraying of aircraft in the wintertime for the anti-ice and de-icing services. They were the lowest price. They keep the fluid here in Albany, so we have it in a 24-hour turnaround. It requires no change in product, so it's just status quo going forward for another year.
Motion to approve.
I'll make a motion, Sam.
Tom, second. JR, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 10.10, once again, Mark.
Lastly, request is made to enter an agreement with KeyBank to provide credit card merchant processing for the parking operations. Parking equipment is unique, and only certain credit card merchant operators can provide service compatible with the dip and swipe credit card readers that we have on our parking equipment. I did a lot of research. Elevon was the only one that can work with WinPay. I did receive prices from Elevon and KeyBank. KeyBank, unbeknownst to me, has the state contract for merchant processing, so they're able to provide a much more affordable product and lower prices. We're gonna be saving quite a bit of money a year. Our current processing charges are about 3 times what we'll be having with this agreement.
Wow, that's great. That's funny.
Request approval to award to KeyBank.
Just a
Okay,
question, so for this one, because it's the limited capabilities of the system, so if we wanted to change it, we had to like change out the whole system out.
Yeah, it's amount of equipment, it's the readers that they use. They're looking at going with something new, but I'm not looking to be a guinea pig. So I think we'll be good for the next few years with current arrangements.
motion JR, second. Kevin? Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And 10.11, Chris.
Chairman, this is a request to, for the board to approve the transfer and assignment of our current agreement with Epic Aviation to Ascent Aviation. The board originally authorized the Epic Fuel agreement in September of 2021 for avgas, Jet A, and sustainable aviation fuel. As Margaret just presented and the board approved, we will be going with a new fuel provider at the beginning of November. So we have a month period in which this company has been purchased, so it needs to be transferred. They will be holding all of our current rates for that 1 month period. And they believe it's gonna close October 1st, so it'll be about 30 days.
Motion? Sarah, second. JR, any questions? All in favor? And 10.12, again, Chris.
Yeah, this is an add-on. We're requesting authorization for amendment to the airport management services agreement between the authority and airports. The agreement currently provides that the authority shall give the contractor at least 90 days notice of its intent to exercise the first extension term prior to the expiration period. And we're seeking to amend that to reduce that time period from 90 days to 60 days. intent here is to give the parties an opportunity to do the discussions for the board to be able to deliberate this and discussions as well as you do that.
Motion? JR, second Tom, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 10.13, Michael.
Chair. Organizations requested to enter into a 5-year lease agreement with Community Air for premises known as Building 211 located at 85 Mexico Road. The 224,614 square foot building is used as an environmental hangar for Community Air. At 50 cents per year, which is approximately 7.14% per year. I think it's important to know, when we get these major leases, we just don't roll them over, This is a new lease. It was an older lease that we had our new aviation attorney within Krieger look over it, and it's important because a lot of things change environmentally, security-wise. So this is a fresh hangar that we can use, or a fresh lease that we can use as a model going forward. We do look at the square footage, it's $5.50. Previous it was $5. And I like to look at square footage because it's a metric that you can compare one hangar to a next. We frequently say the total amount, but it's like, well, it's a large hangar, whatever hangar, So look at that, and we have that with the key hangar. So I want you to know that we looked at this space, and there was a lot of negotiation with Community Air. It wasn't simply, going back and forth once. It was over a month, so authorization is requested.
Okay,
Question.
Yes, sir.
With the one-time improvement allowance, how does this hangar need a lot of work?
It was old, and yes, it does need new lighting, and it's an excellent point. One member is that we did have to negotiate a credit of $130,000 in improvements for that building, and that was necessary, yes. Those are outlined in this agreement.
any other questions? Take a motion. Tom? Second? Jerry? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 10.14,
Yes, building 220, building 220, I think the same,
Typical incentive.
Right, that's correct, without the incentive, we are increasing it from $5 it's a slightly smaller hangar. And it is, and it's not required. Increase, credit.
okay, motion,
Motion to approve.
JR? Second, Janet? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
10.15, back to Chris.
Authorizations requested to enter into a one-year lease with the USDA Aviation Department for a portion, 1,748 square feet of the hangar. The lease term would be for a period of 1 year with approximately $9,000.
Okay, questions on 10.15? Motion? Janet, second. Sari, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 10.16, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is authorization is requested and executed by the new passenger facility charge application, PSC 2406C. This is the amount of $12 million, $12,858,346. This will cover the expenditures for Terminal A, the Terminal B concourse building, and with others, which include the intrusion detection system as well. With this, we will have two amendments. presentation, 05 and 04. 05 is amending the fencing contract, and 04 is for escalator, increase in escalator relocation.
Okay,
Sam,
yes, Tom.
question. Michael, this came up at our finance committee meeting, and so I had asked you to send me the PFC application 5. So you sent me 2022-5, and so I reviewed it, and I didn't recall the board receiving that PFC application for authorization, and I went back through the minutes, and I didn't see that we had.
You had not.
So in that, PFC authorized $22 million, 26,170 in charges and PFC revenue. So I'm glad that we're seeing this. I think it's very important because this is an important, revenue source, and it assigns revenue to specific projects. So I just want to make clear that going forward, that these authorizations come to the board. And that's what we're doing here today. Just like the airline incentive authorizations, those need to be authorized at the board, per our purchasing policies and our budgetary policies.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
JR, motion to approve second. Janet, all in favor?
Aye.
16 approved, authorization of change orders, we're gonna go right to 11.3, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 11.3 is with the board's authorization to award amendment number 1 for the construction contract 1152-GC steep lease hangar roof, which was done by Titan Roofing. The amendments in the amount of $288,270.18. And what includes the original contract we have with Titan was done in late 2022, early 2023 in the middle of the winter, because there were leaks all over on top of their helicopters and the governor's plane, and she wasn't real happy about that. So we made arrangements to get Titan in. My agreement with the state police was to get a roofing company in as soon as possible. We got Titan in as soon as the weather break. Unfortunately, by that time, additional damages had happened to the 2 lower roofs where the conference rooms are, where the governor goes through to, do her hair or have a conference or whatever she does. And the state police said, you're here, why can't we get this done? And so the Titan there, we knew we wouldn't pay a mobilization cost, so we negotiated this change order to get 2 lower roofs done, and now the whole thing is done. We're good for 20 years.
Okay. Pretty important.
Very important.
Can I get a motion to approve? So moved. Kevin, second. Sari, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. And 11.4, John.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Yes, 11.4 is for the board's authorization to award change order number 2, which is the final for the construction contract 23-1146, which was for the airport access gates, operated power control, which Access Amlo was the contractor for. Change order number 2 is in the amount of $119,292.03, which brings the total contract to $2,526,319.91. The additional cost here was to get communication cables, power cables, and finish this job the way it should have been done, so that everything in this, around this airport is completely badge access. There's no more cipher locks, there's no more changing codes. Everybody is a badge access thing. It makes the whole, and every operator out there is uniform, no matter what one goes down. Aircraft maintenance just grabs one toolbox, goes out, they have the parts they need. So this job is done and everything's working fine, and this just closes the door, and I think Access Animal did a good job, made it through the winter, got this done faster than expected.
Right, makes sense, and 90% is covered by the federal government.
Correct.
Any questions? Motion? Janet, second. Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, any old business? Any new business? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session, to discuss the following matter involving a particular person or persons, and a matter involving a particular corporation. Take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to an executive session.
Tom, second. Barry, all in favor?
Aye.
Good.